Hi, welcome to Weekend Review, where we look at some of the news making headlines. Joined this week by Justin Wingerter, by Ryan Sharp from Sports, and my old friend Don Mecoy from the Business Desk. Justin, let's get right into it. We had some lawmakers who were back in town this week to meet with constituents, Tom Cole among them. What was the reception that he received?
Yeah, Tom Cole was in Ada last week, Norman Tuesday, and Midwest City last night. A lot of response, as you might imagine. Each town hall lasted several hours. The one in Norman lasted nearly 6 hours. So a lot to talk about. Number one is healthcare. I mean, that was the issue on most people's minds, by far number one issue. Number two is President Trump. A lot of constituents, even those who are supportive of Tom Cole or supportive of President Trump, wanted to know more about him. What is this guy like in a private conversation? Tom Cole's had plenty of those conversations and could shed a little light on what the president is like in a private conversation, and to what extent does Tom Cole agree with him or disagree with him? And the answer was probably something that didn't please a lot of people, because occasionally he agrees with them and he'll tell you when he does, and occasionally he disagrees with them and he'll tell you when he disagrees as well. So it was probably an answer that doesn't please necessarily a whole constituency there, but he was pretty upfront about where he agrees and where he disagrees.
And I know it's hard to box people in or whatever, but the tone of the questions about health care or whatever, was there a general theme to them, or was it was it basically in support of the Affordable Care Act, or were these people that thought that Congress should have moved and taken some effort to or initiative to do away with that act?
Yeah, more often than not, they were supportive either of the Affordable Care Act, or at least keeping portions of the Affordable Care Act, not repealing it entirely. He faced a fair amount of pushback to a complete repeal of the Affordable Care Act. So many constituents agreed with Congressman Cole that there are aspects of the law that probably should be changed, but very few of them supported his complete repeal. And then those who did favor, more conservative constituents who did favor complete repeal, were frustrated or disappointed that that did not occur in Congress. So he didn't find a lot of sympathy among constituents there on this issue of health care.
And then the issue with the president, again, I know it's hard to categorize or whatever, but would you say the support was for the president, or were these people who seemed to be more in opposition to what the president was trying to?
The majority would be in opposition to the president. I think that's just, the squeaky wheel squeaks the loudest, and so you probably hear some opposition more at these things than you do support. There were some constituents supportive of the president who thought Congressman Cole didn't go far enough in his support of the president. So again, he's taken some flack from both sides. The congressman is a veteran. He knows how to handle this, and he did pretty well. So it doesn't knock him off his feet at all, but he certainly takes some heat from both sides there. Either he's not supporting the president enough, or he's not doing enough to oppose the president, depending on what side of the aisle you are, because the congressman has been somewhat in the middle there. He has issued he's told you when he's supported him, and he's told you when he opposes the president. So again, it's being in the middle there doesn't always please either of the two sides.
And the tone of the conversation can change from location to location, right? Talk a little bit about that.
I would say the tone is probably reflective of these communities. I mean, it was Ada last Tuesday, largely a conservative area, an area that's inclined to support Congressman Cole, and probably to a lesser extent support the president. Norman, of course, more of a liberal town, or certainly a town with its progressive areas. And so he took a lot of flack there. That was the longest of the town halls, certainly the most confrontational. Broke into arguments sometimes, or he was drowned out by jeers or shouting at times there. So, and Midwest City was probably in the middle. It was, certainly a more peaceful, quieter conversation, but he did face some opposition there too. So just kind of reflective of the communities, I would say, that in those town halls, which is what you more or less would expect.
And at a time when a lot of lawmakers are shying away from actually meeting with their constituents, the idea that Tom Cole sat there for 6 hours.
Yeah, stood there for 6 hours.
Stood there for 6 hours answering questions says a lot about him.
Sure.
And then finally, there are some other lawmakers that are also getting ready to meet or have recently met with their constituents. Langford among them, and I believe Steve Russell has had some, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Senator Langford will have one Tuesday in Edmond. That'll be from 5 to 6 p.m. in Edmond. Frank Lucas will have a number of town halls. He's had a number of town halls already. He has 5 coming up next week, 2 Tuesday, 3 on Wednesday. So there are some members of Congress meeting with constituents. Some have not. Some have met with select groups of constituents, a Chamber of Commerce or something like that. Yeah, certainly, Congressman Cole has certainly opened himself up to hours and hours of questions and has faced those questions. And, just certainly to some extent that is admirable. Yeah.
Great insight, Justin. I appreciate you being here. Ryan, let's move on. Big weekend. A couple things going on. First of all, let's talk about Kershaw Mania. Clayton Kershaw coming to town on a rehab assignment.
Yeah, Cy Young winner from the Los Angeles Dodgers. This happens every now and again. The Oklahoma City Dodgers or the 89ers or the Red Hawks or whoever will get these MLB players that come through on rehab assignments. We were talking about in the office the other day, this might be the biggest one ever. You've got a guy that's won the Cy Young multiple times, openly viewed as the best pitcher in baseball right now, and over the last many years, probably the best pitcher. Anyway, coming back through Oklahoma City on a rehab assignment, only expected to pitch maybe 4 innings, 65, 75 pitches, which is more than enough to get people in Oklahoma City fired up. They're expecting the ballpark to be sold out. They've only got standing room only tickets left now. It should be a incredible atmosphere in the middle of summer when attendance is usually down for a minor league baseball park. It should be completely full.
Well, listen, I'm left-handed, so Mecoy, you'd have to pinch hit for me against him. You're a righty, right?
I need a pinch runner though, so.
Well, that's fine. We'll work on that later.
Okay.
That's probably Ryan's job.
I don't think so.
Could you foul one off?
Sure, I probably not. Okay.
Also, big weekend too. High school football on the table, and it's also when we produce and distribute our big football special for the upcoming season.
Yeah, it's that time of year for high school football. This is what's kind of become known in the last couple of years as 0 week. They added it a couple of years ago, and what it does is it gives a lot of teams the ability to schedule one more game in their season and to take an off week later in the season. So if you have a district that is really spread out over the state, and you've traveled to the northwest corner of the state and the southeast corner of the state, and you need a week off somewhere in there, this allows teams to spread out their schedules a little more. So there's a handful of games tonight, nowhere near as much as there will be next week when the season starts in earnest, but there are quite a few games Friday night that count and that matter. And along with that, we're less than a week out now from college football starting. Oklahoma State opens next Thursday at home versus Tulsa. And then OU opens the next weekend, or that following Saturday at home against UTEP. So of course that time of year means our busy time of year. So we've got 2 preview sections coming out in the paper over the next 5 to 6 days. Sunday the 27th, we have our college football preview coming out. And then on Wednesday the 30th, we have our high school football preview coming out. This year is kind of unique in that the state is loaded with some top flight quarterback talent. At Oklahoma State, you've got Mason Rudolph, and of course at Oklahoma, you've got Baker Mayfield, both of whom have been mentioned as Heisman candidates. Both schools have pretty lofty goals this year as far as the college football playoff, big time bowls, Big 12 championships. This is also the year that the Big 12 championship game is back in Dallas. So there's a chance if
memories.
Yeah, if there's a chance if these teams have the year that everybody expects them to, that we may get Bedlam twice. We'll see it in November on the 3rd, and then maybe again at the end. Apologies to your Kansas State Wildcats. But so both of these teams come in with some pretty lofty goals, and so for our college preview, we took a look at Baker Mayfield, Mason Rudolph, and really kind of took a deep dive into the 2 of them and what they mean to their respective schools, and to the players that they have around them. It's a little bit of a different situation at Oklahoma State. Mason Rudolph has more receivers than you could want. They've got 9 or 10 guys that they're going to play, and so we take a look at what that affords Mason Rudolph to be able to do. For Baker Mayfield, it's a little bit different. You've lost Joe Mixon, you've lost Samaje Perine, you've lost Edie Westbrook. So you're relying on a lot of unknowns. They have a transfer wide receiver in Jeff Badette that's supposed to be really good and could be the next in their kind of line of transfer receivers that they've had over the past few years.
I heard that Stoops guy was pretty good too.
Yeah. Obviously they're breaking in a new coach. For running back for OU, they're also trying to find somebody new there. They've got guys in Abdul Adams and Rodney Anderson that have played some over the past few years. But obviously with those other two guys that are now playing in the NFL, none of these guys have much experience. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And there's a great cover art that's been put together by Todd Pendleton.
Yeah, Todd Pendleton's been doing our covers for the last several years. And so with these two guys, and the possibility of playing each other numerous times, they're actually pretty good friends. So they kind of have some shots back and forth. The theme of our section is armed and dangerous. And so Todd did a fantastic illustration of these two guys arm wrestling. Don can hold it up. But Todd did a great job with it. And then our high school cover, which will come out next Wednesday, features some of the top high school quarterbacks in the state. Casey Thompson, who transferred to Newcastle this year. There's a guy with a pretty familiar name playing quarterback in Stillwater. His name's Gunnar Gundy. He's the son of OSU football coach Mike Gundy. He's just a sophomore, but really good, getting bigger. Looks a lot like his dad on the field, except he's left-handed.
Does he have a mohawk?
No, he's got pretty normal hair, and that may be by design. I think Gundy gets some pretty good ribbing from his kids about his hair. So it's going to be a fascinating couple of weeks as we get going here, and it's certainly a lot of fun for us and for fans.
Can't wait. Can't wait for college football. Can't wait. Don, it's gray, it's ugly outside, and apparently it's that weather down in the Gulf Coast is also affecting us. Gas prices, all sorts of ways.
We're expecting that's what's going to happen. A lot of infrastructure in the energy business is getting shut down in the Gulf and along the Gulf inland. We're expecting Harvey to hit the Texas Gulf Coast tomorrow morning, and we've actually already talked to some Oklahoma companies that are shutting down operations, drilling operations. There's refineries that are being shut down. So yeah, we'll expect oil prices to jump up a little bit, and we certainly expect gasoline prices because there's just a raft of refineries along the Gulf Coast. So you can expect gas prices to go up. So if you can fill up on Friday rather than Saturday, you'll probably save a little money.
And we've talked also a little bit this morning about when these kind of incidents occur. We have some groups in the Oklahoma City area. Church groups and others.
Sure, there's a Baptist group that responds to these kind of emergencies. There's also, you end up with OG&E. Oftentimes we'll send crews, and even co-ops will send crews to help in the recovery efforts. So yeah, we do send Oklahomans. You see Oklahomans get down there in the aftermath of these kind of situations.
Well, listen, we'll have more on all these stories, including, and we'll keep you posted on what happens when that storm hits. It looks like it's going to be a really bad one. So that's the kind of news that we give you, 365 days a year. Pick up a paper, check us out online. We'll see you next week.